Welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to be talking about something that I'm sure a lot of you have thought about before and maybe even tried the idea of playing hard to get while dating. We're going to be taking a look at all of this through the lens of Mimi Kanner's work.
Okay.
She has a book and website called Hard to Get: The Timeless Art of Letting Him Chase You. Now, before anyone listening thinks that this is all about being manipulative or playing games or anything like that,
Right.
we're going to try to really understand what's going on psychologically with this whole idea of this age-old dating strategy
Yeah.
and see if there's really anything to it or not.
It's interesting how much this topic really makes people react.
Yeah.
So at the core of Tanner's argument is this idea that men are kind of wired to pursue
Okay.
and that women can use this to their advantage by not being too easy. But she's really clear that this is about having self-respect and confidence.
Yeah.
It's not about playing mind games.
Right. And she even uses the story of Emily and Robert to try to make this point. Emily is totally crazy about this guy, Robert.
Oh, okay.
She just throws all caution to the wind and just asks him out right away. But then things fizzle out really fast,
Oh.
which leaves Emily totally heartbroken. And Tanner uses this to show that when you come on too strong,
Yeah.
it can really backfire.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, well, I think we have to talk about the elephant in the room here, the word manipulation.
Yeah, you can't really talk about playing hard to get without bringing that up.
Exactly. It's like as soon as most people hear that phrase, hard to get, they think
Yeah.
fakeness, leading someone on, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and Tanner addresses this right away.
Yeah.
She really thinks that it's actually the opposite of manipulation. So it's not about growing against how attraction works naturally, but aligning yourself with it.
Yep.
So think of it this way. You can try to force a square peg into a round hole, or you can find a peg that actually fits.
Right.
So what she's really saying is that we need to understand the shape of male desire.
Okay, so less about pretending to be uninterested and more about, I don't know, maybe rediscovering how to be self-assured in a way that lets a man actually be the pursuer.
Yeah, exactly. It's about knowing your worth and letting a man rise to the occasion.
Okay, I like that. Now let's talk about one of Tanner's most important ideas, the scarcity factor.
Okay.
This is where things get really interesting.
This is all about how people value the things they have to work for.
Okay.
So Tanner uses the example of a $2,000 Jaguar, and the first thing most people would think is, what's wrong with it?
Yeah, there's got to be something wrong with it.
Right, because we know that luxury cars like that are usually worth way more.
Right.
So when you see one that's super cheap, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it'd be like finding a first edition of a classic book for $1.
Exactly. You would immediately think it was a fake.
Right.
Our sense of value is tied to how scarce something is. She actually tells a story about buying this rare book for hundreds of dollars,
Wow.
only to find out later that the same book was in a library, and they were about to get rid of it because no one had checked it out in years.
Oh, wow.
It shows how much our sense of value is really shaped by how available something is.
Okay, so how does all of this apply to dating? Are we saying that playing hard to get is like making yourself a vintage Jaguar?
Well, not exactly, but the idea is similar.
Okay.
So when you're not easy to win over, you become more desirable. It triggers this natural human desire for things that are hard to get.
It's that we want what we can't have instinct.
That's it, exactly. You're not the book on the free shelf. You're the limited edition that everyone wants.
Makes sense. I bet there are some women listening right now rolling their eyes.
Oh, for sure.
Tanner actually talks about some objections women have in her book, right?
Yeah, she does. And it's a really good way to see where some of the skepticism comes from.
Okay.
One thing some women say is, with a great man, I shouldn't have to play games. Another one is, I don't have the energy for this.
Yeah.
And then there's also, I just don't like the idea.
Let's break those down one by one. So for the women who say, with a great man, I shouldn't have to play games, what does Tanner say to that?
Well, she says that even great men like a challenge.
Okay.
It's not about the game, but about that natural instinct to pursue something. And this actually makes the dynamic better for both people.
Interesting. Okay. What about the energy argument? I don't have the energy for this. I think a lot of people can relate to that one.
Yeah, I get that. But Tanner says that playing hard to get is actually about doing less, not more.
Okay.
It's about making your own life and interests a priority and not being focused on getting someone else's approval.
So less energy spent, more about directing it in the right places.
Exactly.
I like that. That's like self-care, not manipulation.
Okay.
Okay, last one. I just don't like the idea. What does Tanner say about that?
She gets that it might not be for everyone,
Yeah.
but she encourages those women to think about whether they might be pushing men away without realizing it by being too available.
Yeah.
It all comes back to her main point. Work with men's natural instincts, not against them.
So just be mindful of how our actions come across, even when we have good intentions.
Right.
Okay, let's talk more about this power of the chase. Why is the pursuit so important for both men and women? Is it all about ego?
I don't think so. I think it goes deeper than that, although that probably is part of it.
Okay.
Tanner says that for men, the pursuit makes things exciting and gives them a sense of accomplishment, which makes them value the woman more.
Hmm.
And for women, it gives them time to figure out if the man's intentions are real and if he's really committed.
Okay.
So if he's willing to put in the effort, it shows he's truly interested.
So it's like a built-in test.
Exactly. It weeds out the guys who are just looking for something quick and shows you the ones who are really invested.
That makes a lot of sense. But what happens when the relationship is already going? Does the chase just end?
Well, Tanner thinks that keeping a sense of mystery is really important even as the relationship goes on.
Okay.
It doesn't mean playing games or being emotionally closed off.
Good.
It's about having your own life, passions, and interests outside of the relationship.
So you're not making the man your only focus.
Exactly. You're keeping your individuality and growing as a person, even in a committed relationship.
I like that. So you're not two halves trying to make a whole. You're two wholes choosing to be together.
Right.
Now, Tanner has some strong opinions about what she calls the serious talk, when you try to define the relationship. And her advice is, well, let's just say it's bold.
Yeah, she says that women should never be the ones to start that conversation.
Which I think is probably the opposite of what a lot of women would naturally do.
Probably.
Why is she so against it?
Because she thinks that starting the serious talk changes the power dynamic in a bad way for the woman. It can make her seem desperate or too invested, which might actually push the man away.
So what's the other option? Just wait forever and hope he brings it up?
Not necessarily. It's more about creating a space where he feels like he can take that step.
Okay.
And that goes back to everything we've been talking about, being confident, independent, and letting him pursue you.
So you're trusting the process and letting things happen naturally, which can be tough in our world of instant gratification.
Yeah, it's true.
Okay, well, we've covered a lot about Tanner's point of view, but we should say that not everyone agrees with playing hard to get.
Right. There are definitely other opinions out there.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about those next.
It's true. Not everyone's a fan of the whole hard to get thing.
Right.
Critics say it can turn into a bunch of games and actually prevent real connection. I mean, if you're always acting less interested than you really are,
Yeah.
doesn't that create a disconnect?
Right. It's like you're not being your real self, and that makes it hard to be really close to someone. Plus, some people say that playing hard to get reinforces these old-fashioned ideas about men and women.
Yeah, like the whole men chase and women wait thing.
Exactly. Like, women aren't supposed to be direct and go after what they want,
Yeah.
which feels a little out of touch with how we think about equality these days. And let's be honest, it can be exhausting to think about all that strategy all the time.
Yeah, who has the energy?
Wouldn't it be easier to just be straight up about how you feel and what you want?
That's what people who are all about direct communication say.
Right.
They say that honesty and vulnerability are the most important things for strong relationships.
Yeah.
And that all the game playing just gets in the way.
So it seems like there's no clear answer here.
Yeah.
Both sides have good points.
Yeah.
What are we supposed to do with all this?
I think the main thing is to remember that there's no one right way to date.
Okay.
What works for one person might not work for someone else. So the most important thing is to be true to yourself and what you believe in.
Yeah, I love that. Do what feels right for you. But even if you don't want to play hard to get,
Right.
I still think there are some useful things we can learn from Tanner's work.
Yeah, definitely.
It's like even if you don't follow the recipe exactly, knowing what the ingredients are can make you a better cook.
Great analogy.
Okay, so let's talk about the whip of indifference. Even though that name sounds a bit intense, I think the concept itself could be helpful,
Yeah.
whether you're into playing hard to get or not.
Right.
So remind me what the whip of indifference is all about.
It's about getting good at being subtly detached. So responding to a guy without being too eager.
Okay.
Showing interest, but not smothering him.
Gotcha.
Finding that perfect balance between being engaged and giving him space to pursue.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in real life, how would that work?
Yeah.
Let's say you're texting a guy you like,
Uh-huh.
and he takes forever to respond.
Oh, yeah.
Do you play it cool and wait even longer to text back, or what?
The important thing is to respond without seeming desperate.
Uh,
You don't want to play games, but you also don't want to drop everything and reply the second he texts.
right.
You have a life outside of your phone. Show him that you're not just sitting around waiting for him.
Yeah, you've got your own thing going, and he's lucky to be a part of it.
Exactly. And this connects to something else. Tanner talks about how men often open up emotionally and then shut down.
Oh my gosh.
Have you ever seen that?
All the time, it's like they take 2 steps forward and then a giant leap back.
Right.
It's so confusing. What's that all about?
Well, Tanner thinks it's usually a defense mechanism.
Okay.
Men can be afraid to be vulnerable, especially when they're first dating someone.
Hmm.
So they open up a little and then pull back to see how you'll react
Okay.
and to protect themselves from getting hurt.
So it's kind of like a test?
Yeah, you could say that they're testing the waters to see if it's safe to be open with you.
And this is where the whip of indifference comes in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when a guy pulls away, the worst thing you can do is freak out and try to get him back.
Right.
That just makes him more scared. Just stay calm and don't chase after him or blow up his phone.
Okay.
Keep living your life and trust that if he's really interested, he'll come back.
So you keep your balance and don't let his actions throw you off.
That's it. And Tanner says this is way more attractive than chasing after him or begging him to come back.
Interesting. Okay, so Tanner also says that you shouldn't act like he's the one too soon.
Yeah.
Why is that so important?
Well, when you put a guy on a pedestal and act like he's the answer to all your prayers before he's done anything to deserve it, it can backfire. It puts a lot of pressure on him and makes him feel like he can't live up to your expectations.
So let him prove himself before you give him all that adoration.
Exactly. Don't just hand it over to him without him earning it.
Right, and this goes back to that idea of keeping some mystery. If you tell him everything about yourself right away,
Right.
there's nothing left for him to discover.
It's like reading the last page of a book first.
Yeah, it ruins the whole story.
Exactly.
Okay, let's talk about something that could be a bit sensitive, ultimatums.
Ooh.
Tanner's not a fan of those, is she?
Not at all. She actually compares them to the kiss of death for a relationship.
Wow.
And she includes the serious talk in that, too.
So no demanding to know where the relationship is going or setting deadlines.
No. Tanner says that ultimatums make people resentful and pressured, which are the worst things for a healthy relationship. They change the power dynamic in a bad way and can make the woman seem desperate or controlling.
But what about the women who want to feel secure and know where things are going?
Yeah, I get that. But Tanner says there are better ways to figure out how committed a guy is without giving him an ultimatum.
Okay, so how can a woman do that without using those kinds of tactics?
It goes back to watching what he does and how he treats you.
Okay.
Does he make an effort to see you? Does he introduce you to his friends and family?
Yeah.
Does he make spending time with you a priority?
So you look for actions that show he's committed instead of relying on words or forcing him to say something.
Yet actions speak louder than words, and they tell you way more about how he really feels.
That's a really good point. Now, Tanner also talks about what to do when there's another woman.
Oh, yeah. This is where she gives some advice that's kind of surprising.
True.
She says women shouldn't try to compete with the other woman directly.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. What does she think women should do instead?
She has a more strategic approach.
Yeah.
She says you should focus on making your own relationship with the guy stronger and making yourself so valuable to him that he can't imagine being without you.
So you show him how amazing you are and make him realize what he'd lose instead of getting into a fight with the other woman.
Exactly. You're playing the long game and focusing on the things you can control, which are your own actions and how strong your connection with him is.
Right.
Tanner thinks this is way more effective than trying to fight for his attention.
It's like you're taking control of your own destiny instead of feeling threatened.
That's the idea, and that's what I find so interesting about Tanner's work. It's not about tricking men or playing games.
Yeah.
It's about giving women the tools to understand how attraction works and using that knowledge to create the relationships they want.
So sometimes the best way to win a man's heart is by not chasing him at all.
Exactly.
It sounds kind of backwards in today's dating world.
Yeah, it does.
But maybe it's the key to having deeper, more fulfilling relationships. It's kind of funny how these ideas sound old-fashioned, but maybe they're saying something really basic about how people work.
Yeah.
But what worked for our parents' generation doesn't always work now, you know?
Right.
What do you think about how all this hard-to-get stuff fits in with how we date today with apps and hookup culture and all that?
That's a good question. It definitely makes things more complicated.
Yeah.
You have this whole dance of pursuit that's been going on forever,
Right.
and then you have these new apps that are all about instant gratification and just hooking up.
Hmm.
It's like trying to do the tango in a mosh pit.
I love that image. So does that mean playing hard to get is totally outdated?
Mm.
Or could these ideas actually be even more important now when dating feels so fast and superficial?
It's tough to say. I think it depends on how you use those ideas. If you're
Ah,
trying to manipulate someone or play games,
yeah.
it's probably going to backfire no matter how you're dating. But if you focus on the important stuff like respecting yourself, being confident, and letting the relationship develop naturally,
Mhm.
those are things that never go out of style, and they can help you no matter how you meet someone.
I like that you're adapting to the situation, not just throwing out all the good stuff.
Exactly. And remember, the point isn't to trick someone into liking you.
Right.
It's about creating a space where real attraction can grow.
So maybe the real game isn't about playing hard to get, but about being smart.
I like that. Playing smart means knowing yourself, knowing what you want, and going after it in a way that feels right for you.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
I think we can all agree that being genuine and knowing yourself are super important, whether you're into playing hard to get or not.
Totally. And dating shouldn't feel like a battle or a game of chess.
Yeah, it should be fun.
It should be about connection and enjoying yourself and finding someone who really gets you.
So well said. Well, I think that wraps up our deep dive into playing hard to get.
Yeah,
I hope this was helpful and maybe made you think about things a little differently.
me too.
Remember, there's no one right way to date. So take what works for you and forget about the rest.
Right.
The most important thing is to believe in yourself and go into dating with a good plan and a lot of self-love.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And if this got you curious, we encourage you to check out Mimi Tanner's work.
Yeah.
You might find some really helpful ideas that make navigating the world of dating and relationships a little easier and more confident.
Good luck out there.
Happy dating, everyone!